The story begins as a reality that defied understanding appeared before him, often breeding denial. Blood ran from his mouth as he faced it. He simply refused to see it. He continued to refuse until the moment he witnessed the truth, the heroes advancing toward the throne, while bodies lay scattered on the steps. He thought of his proud black flames and wondered why they could not even scratch the heroes. He questioned why the hero's blade pierced his scales and burrowed into his heart. He could not understand. Bleeding and stunned, he wondered how it could happen, believing himself superior to everyone. He remembered entering the Demon King Academy at the top of his class and graduating as valedictorian. He had mastered the standard of the Demon King, the foundational theory created by the first Demon Emperor. He studied that theory deeper than anyone else and followed it strictly. As the standard dictated, he built a tower and kidnapped princesses. Then he nurtured the heroes who came to rescue them. For a demon king, their rage and sorrow served as the ultimate feast. Killing them too early would have been a waste. The standard taught him to fatten them up before devouring them, because a stronger herd made for a more satisfying meal. He followed the standard of the Demon King more faithfully than anyone. World domination seemed only a matter of time as he absorbed the sorrow and rage of countless beings, including the heroes. Through this, he became a Demon King stronger than any other. He questioned why, despite that, he was the one lying in the dirt. Bleeding and furious, he demanded to know how this happened. The hero mocked him, calling all demons the same. The Demon King reacted with shock. The hero pointed out that the demons set up the situation themselves, yet acted surprised by the outcome, something he said he could not understand. The Demon King questioned the hero's words, calling them nonsense. The hero continued, saying the demons always kidnap the most famous princesses as a signal, as if announcing that the Demon King was active and inviting the heroes to stop him. Laughing, the hero added that if it were him, he would have simply killed the king, though that would throw the kingdom into chaos. The Demon King realized that if the king were kidnapped, the humans hungry for the throne would start a civil war. Their rage would no longer be focused on him. If humans fell into civil war, he eventually would not grow as a demon king. Such an outcome violated the teachings of the standard. The hero mocked him further, explaining that if the heroes did not go to the tower, the demons sent monsters to the villages to help them train. The hero said they could not be more grateful. The hero added that once they reached the tower, it became even better. He said the first floor was always stocked with weaklings, perfect for grinding levels suited to their current skills. The Demon King thought he could not let the hero die midway, and needed to be careful to harvest more energy, because that was what the standard taught. As the battle continued, the Demon King was struck and injured again. The hero explained that when the tower became stale, the heroes simply killed the Demon King, after which a new Demon King and a new tower would appear. The hero laughed, calling the tower a hunting ground made for heroes. He asked the others to confirm, and they agreed enthusiastically. The gathered heroes cheered, thanking the Demon King, saying they had leveled up because of him. They shouted that he was not a Demon King but their godfather. The Demon King, face down and wounded, repeated the word godfather to himself in disbelief. He questioned whether his tower had been their grinding spot. The hero told him he was tough and that many heroes died this time, but that only made him more famous, so he did not care. He prepared his final strike and told the Demon King farewell. The Demon King thought that a mere hero cannot. How could this be? He felt humiliated and wondered what the standard of the Demon Kings was supposed to be. He declared he could not die in vain and began to rise. He proclaimed that he was the Demon King. Power surged around him as he shouted it again. The hero's attack clashed with him. Blood and force scattered through the chamber. The Demon King's face twisted with rage and defiance as the fight continued. Heroes watched from a distance as the battle raged. The hero beheaded the Demon King in single strike. Blood spilled across the floor as the Demon King vowed that the hero would pay the price for insulting him. He swore it. The hero warned his party not to touch the Demon King's head, claiming the horns for himself, but then noticed something and questioned what was happening. The Demon King resolved that even if he had to sacrifice his last drop of life, he would offer it. His eye glowed with power. The hero hesitated as he recognized what was forming. Energy surged violently. The Demon King released a burst of power, and the hero shouted for everyone to run. The energy exploded outward and distorted the chamber. A wave of purple force swept through the hall. A massive silhouette formed within the blast as the attack expanded. The Demon King realized the standard had been wrong. If he had known the heroes used the standard to make fools of them, he never would have followed the standard. If he had known the truth, if he were given just one more chance, he would feed the standard to the orcs. A massive explosion consumed the tower and spread downward into darkness. In the void, a voice echoed the name Berze Deas. Light returned as someone called out Berze Deas. He jolted awake with wide eyes. He found himself standing in a large hall among many students. Confused, he wondered what was happening. He questioned whether he was alive. A robed instructor called Berze Deas forward and urged him to come quickly. Hearing the name again, he repeated it silently, realizing it was his. The instructor called him once more to come forward. Berze wondered what this situation was. The instructor called Berze Deas again. Berze reacted with surprise. The instructor repeated his name and asked why someone of his talent was spacing out on graduation day. Berze recognized him as the chairman. He looked down and saw the red badge. He remembered it as the badge given to every student who completed the Demon King Academy, the symbol of a Demon King. Realizing this, he thought this moment was his graduation. He recalled that this was 15 years ago, the Demon King Academy graduation ceremony. A voice instructed all graduates to ascend the podium. Students moved toward the front. Berze thought that he did not know why he had returned to the past, but he saw it as an opportunity. A announcer announced that the oath from the graduates who would become the new demon kings would be heard next. Announcer loudly called for the valedictorian Berze Deas to read as the representative. Berze stood before the glowing tablet that displayed the standard of the demon king. The rules were listed. A demon king must build a tower within their domain, must kidnap a prince or princess, must become a mastermind, and incite chaos with clues for enemies, must nurture the hero to harvest more energy, must fill the lower floors of the tower with weak monsters, and more. He looked at the tablet and repeated the name of the standard. He thought he had seen it until he was sick of it. He recalled memorizing it without missing a single syllable. He thought of the principles he had dedicated his entire life to upholding. He remembered the trash that had driven him to his death and the garbage that had turned him into a toy for the heroes. Berze looked at the graduates beside him and wondered if he had to read the standard now. He questioned whether he had to swear before everyone to follow it for the rest of his life. The faculty members watched with pleasant expressions, while Berze clenched his teeth. The announcer called to him, asking if he was Berze Deas, and instructing him to recite the great standard of the Demon King. Berze declared that he refused. He stood before the gathered students and shouted that he could not swear to such an oath. He claimed that following the standard was the most foolish thing to do. He continued shouting, saying the standard of the Demon King was trash. The assembly reacted with shock. Some students and staff dropped what they were holding, horrified. A teacher screamed in disbelief. Another faculty member shouted in anger. Berze stood firm, and a narration stated that this was the moment the Academy's greatest valedictorian transformed into the greatest lunatic of the century. A heavy fist slammed down. Arcane Blairymph, Archduke of the Demon Realm, shouted Berze Deas's name. He warned that Berze could be executed on the spot for insulting the Demon King's standards. He continued speaking, and said that considering Berze's exemplary conduct and outstanding talent, they would give him one final chance. Berze stood below as the Archduke ordered him to withdraw his reckless statement and apologized to the entire demon realm. The Archduke added that if Berze refused, his assigned deployment would be Arene. Observers whispered in shock, asking if he was serious. They said Arene was the dimension where demon kings died by the dozens and called it a death sentence. They questioned why a criminal like him deserved another chance. Others repeated the same question, saying someone like him deserved death for insulting the standards, and that an apology was not enough. The Archduke told Berze he should know well what Arene was. He described it as the worst domain where countless demon kings had lost their lives. Berze responded and told them to send him there. He said he would prove that the demon king's standards were garbage. The crowd reacted with shock. The Archduke declared him hopeless and announced that effective immediately, Berze Deas's deployment location was Arene. He added that Berze would receive no privileges normally granted to a top demon king, and that no demons would accompany him. The teleportation initiates. Berze is told he is forbidden from returning to the demon realm until the occupation is complete. As he falls through the sky, he thinks to himself that the situation is expected after the trouble he caused, yet he reflects that he truly is being sent back there. He descends toward Arene, the place where the heroes who killed him reside. He recalls that even before he regressed, he personally chose Arene, believing that the strongest should conquer the hardest difficulty. He acknowledges that arrogance cost him his life. He remembers that many heroes exploited the Demon King's standards. A violent impact lands him in the snowy mountains of the northern continent, the Eregist Mountains. He stands up with his wings spread. Berze states that he will not let it happen twice. He repeats that he will not let it happen twice and adds that this time he will be the one to exploit it. The hero's standards. Before the ceremony, we see Gordon Dirick, the top graduate of the Demon Academy, calmly evaluates his appearance and deems it satisfactory. At the same time, when Bejre was about to regress, Gordon stands before the assembled crowd. An explanation is given about the Academy's hierarchy. While the Demon King Academy trains demon kings, the Demon Academy trains the demons who serve them. By regulation, the highest-ranked graduate serves the top demon king. Gordon walks with the graduates who place second and third. They remark on his good fortune in earning the position to serve the demon king, Berge. The second-ranked graduate congratulates him lightly, while the third-ranked graduate laments falling short, believing that with a little more effort he could have claimed the honor. Instead, Gordon responds politely, stating that all demon kings are great, though he adds that none compare to Berge. His admiration for Berge is evident. As he reflects, he recalls that Berge is the unrivaled prodigy of the Demon King Academy, a figure whose existence will be remembered in demon realm history indefinitely. Gordon considers it a blessing to graduate in the same year as him. He then imagines a grand statue depicting the great demon king Berge and his lieutenant as himself, believing that with Berge, they could conquer any dimension. Filled with conviction, Gordon affirms that he too will one day be engraved in the records of demon realm history and expresses confidence toward Berge. Berge interrupts his thoughts, declaring that the standards are wrong. The statement echoes through the hall. Gordon looks out over the gathered demons as the voice continues, claiming that the true issue lies in the Demon King's standards. At present, Gordon appears in the deep region of the northern continent's Eregist Mountains after teleportation. The reminder stating that the top demon serves the top demon king. Berge stated that he had been told no demon would accompany him, yet seeing that one had been sent anyway. Berge approaches him. Gordon wonders why Berge did something like this. While Berge responds by asking what he means, Gordon panics and asks how Berge could say such things in front of everyone. He exclaims about Arene and fears he is going to die as as well. Berger tells him to calm down, you'll rip your hair out, but Gordon shouts that his hair is not the issue. Berger wonders if Gordon had always been this way, remembering him as confident and composed before his regression. In Berger's past memories, Gordon states that it will be difficult, but with the two of them, they can succeed. Berger thinks that Gordon's reaction is understandable, because the situation is now different. He considers telling Gordon about his regression, but believes Gordon might think he is insane. Gordon breathes heavily in the snow. He apologizes for his earlier display, and says that since it has come to this, he will fulfill his duty. Berger responds with acknowledgement. A narration states the Demon King's standards. Rule 1. The Demon King must build a tower. It adds that the tower cannot be hidden or placed in an excessively harsh environment, so that heroes can find it. Gordon observes the surroundings and says, the place is dangerous, surrounded by massive mountains, and difficult for humans to find or approach. He notes that powerful monsters roam everywhere, and tells Berger they should move because a tower cannot be built here. Berger rejects the idea, and states he will build the tower here. He plants the tower seed in the ground. A description explains that the seed must be planted, and fed Demon King blood for the tower to grow. Gordon reacts and says Berger is going directly against the standards. Berger replies internally that he never swore any oath to follow them. Gordon asks if Berger is also throwing away the pride of a Demon King. Berger thinks he understands Gordon's disgust. He reflects that as a demon, it is hard to deny a faith ingrained deeply. He thinks that unless one dies or experiences something as drastic as death, they cannot reject it, and he recognizes that he once felt the same. Berger clenches his fist. He tells Gordon to listen well, and states that the Demon King's standards are garbage, especially in the region of Areen. Gordon stiffens in shock as the ground trembles. The mountains shake, while red energy begins to surge from the tower seed. The seed glows intensely, and Berger releases blood onto it. The blood strikes the seed, causing a wave of red light to expand outward across the snow. A burst of energy spreads in a wide circle. Berger states that Areen is swarming with heroes, and that there are far too many of them. A message appears, stating that the tower is identifying the user. It identifies the race as the Black Flame Demonic Dragon Tribe, and the name as Berger Deus. Identification completes, and the tower is summoned. A large tower rises with force from the ground. Berger says that this is why Demon Kings kept dying here. He explains that humans realized, after countless tower destructions, that the tower has a mechanism, and they use the Demon King's standards against them. He continues that in this land, the Demon King's standards no longer work, and that they should be called the hero standards. Gordon questions what the hero standards even mean. The completed tower stands tall before them. Gordon looks up and thinks that in the end, Berger summoned the tower here. Berger tells Gordon, let's go inside, and Gordon silently follows. They enter Berger's tower, floor 1. The hall is wide and empty. Gordon thinks that a normal tower should have complex structures or be filled with monsters, but there is nothing. He thinks it is a tower with no perks, meant for a Demon King with no privileges. They arrive at Berger's tower, floor 5, the Demon King's chamber. Gordon thinks that every floor is completely empty. He thinks they cannot undo the tower now that it is already built, but they must still follow standards. Rule 2. Rule 2 states that the Demon King must kidnap a prince or princess, preferably one close to the throne, as they yield more demonic energy. Gordon asks to advise the Demon King. Berger allows it. Gordon explains that the kingdom closest to the Aregist Mountains is Korzen. He asks Berger to kidnap the princess with the highest succession rank, and says to absorb the kingdom's rage and sorrow to grow quickly. Gordon begins to say he knows Berger will refuse, but Berger agrees immediately. Gordon reacts with surprise. Berger says there is already a princess he has in mind. Gordon offers to help too, but Berger tells him to guard the tower because the Demon King's residence must not be empty. Gordon silently thanked that the Demon King agreed, convincing himself the king was only stressed from the graduation, and that the situation was still salvageable. He believed this was where things truly began. He then asked Berger who he intended to bring. Berger hesitated, then explained he intended to choose someone from the country farthest from the tower, the southernmost nation on the continent, the kingdom of Hildaren. He flew toward the kingdom and stopped outside a window where a girl sat beneath the moonlight. Among all the princesses, he focused on the one with the least presence, the 13th princess. He appeared before her and declared that he had come to take her. Gordon's distant outburst echoed in contrast, calling the choice the total opposite of the standards. The princess stared at the Demon King in confusion and asked who he is, like she's asking as if with 2 horns and wings, a hero will come. Well, our so-called the Demon King answered that he was the Demon King who had come to kidnap her. The princess asks the Demon King if he is sure he can handle her, and he reacts with surprise. He thinks her question is strange and wonders if she considers Demon Kings a joke. He states that he can handle her because he is a Demon King. She tells him she will let him take her, causing him to react again in shock. He notes that she is unusually calm and asks what she is planning. She answers that she always thought something like this might happen someday because she was born a princess. He warns that if she expects him to lower his guard, she should give up, explaining he is desperate and will not let her trick him. She replies that she is not plotting anything, and asks how she could have prepared a trap without knowing he would come today. He acknowledges internally that she has a point, but feels an uncomfortable sensation he cannot identify. She extends her hand and asks if they shall go. They leave together, flying across the snowy mountains toward Aregist Berger's tower. Inside the tower, Gordon rushes to them and says Berger returned safely. Berger instructs Gordon to let the princess stay in the corner of the 4th floor. Gordon asks why not the prison. Berger explains that she came without much resistance, so he is willing to offer leniency. Gordon responds with understanding. Gordon tells Berger that he he has something important to report. Berger looks back in silence. On the 4th floor of Berger's tower, the princess stands alone in the empty space. She notes that the floor is cold and hard, and recognizes that she has truly been kidnapped. She observes that the room contains nothing, not even pillows. She thinks about the lack of blankets, maids, or gardens and compares it to the kingdom, noting it is entirely different. She pauses and concludes that it is not so bad. Later, Berger comments on receiving an invitation from the Tower of Beasts. Gordon confirms that it is a welcome party for the new Demon King. Berger considers it an attempt to haze him as a newcomer. He reflects that Demon Kings are too proud to cooperate, but that Arian forced them to work together. He thinks about how he previously ignored them, assuming they were weak-minded, but decides he should make an attempt to exchange words with them. Scene shifts at the Tower of the Beasts. Draxon, the Demon King of Beasts, introduces himself, saying that he has been ruling here for 70 years. He asks if Berger is the new Demon King, saying, "I heard that you mocked the traditional way, but you're pretty unimpressive." Berger asks if you are going to try to fight me. Draxon laughingly says that Archduke Arcane told me about you, and also said to keep an eye on you. Berger simply says, "You mean that old geezer who is a vampire?" Draxon gets furious, wondering why Berger is talking about Archduke like that. He then throws a piece of meat, saying, "Lick it, then maybe I'll forgive you." Berger asks, "Don't you really know why I'm here?" Draxon tells him, "I know you're here because you mocked the Demon King's standards." Berger states that, according to the standards, or say, orthodox rules, Demon Kings cannot kill each other. He then adds that he has no intention of following that rule. Draxon prepares to strike, but Berger releases a powerful burst of force that explodes outward beneath him. Draxon is blown back as Berger questions whether Draxon believed he would obey such restrictions. Draxon becomes terrified and wonders what the aura surrounding Berger is. He stammers that Archduke Arcane sent him to check whether Berger had properly kidnapped a princess, warning that failure to report within a month would cause Berger to lose his authority. Berger replies that he was curious what Draxon wanted to say. He states that he has already kidnapped a princess. Draxon reacts in shock. Berger continues, adding that she suits his taste. The scene returns to Berger's tower. Gordon tells Berger that he displayed the majesty of a demon king. Berger answers that it was nothing special, and says Draxon should not cause further trouble for now. Berger adds that they need to be prepared. He orders Gordon to check the princess's condition, and says he should learn how to make use of her. Gordon agrees. Snow falls outside the tower window as the room stays silent. Berger sits on his throne, thinking that the situation is troublesome. He runs a hand through his hair, judging that if this is how the other demon kings act, matters will become bothersome. He reflects that the consequences of mocking the orthodox way are heavier than expected. He admits to himself that even if given another chance, he would make the same choice. He would rather die than bow his head to trash. He resolves not to repeat the same mistake and decides to rebuild his foundation from scratch. A screen appears before him. Since he kidnapped the princess of the lowest rank, he expects to receive only a few hundred demonic energy points, thinking this method is the safest. Instead, the number shown is 13,219 points. Confused, he questions why he has so many points. A new notification arrives, announcing that he has received a video recording from the Tower of Beasts. He turns toward it in surprise. The recording begins with the beast-like Demon King Draxon speaking, congratulating him as a new Demon King, though their first meeting was not ideal. Draxon claims he should still extend this gesture as a senior, acknowledging that what Berger achieved in Arene is not an easy feat. Berger watches the message with a tense expression as Draxon remarks that he is truly impressed, wondering if Berger's mockery of the orthodox way was only a cover. Berger senses something is wrong. Gordon ran toward the Demon King Berger and urgently reported that there was a problem on the 4th floor. Berger reacted with surprise. On the 4th floor, butterflies fluttered through a bright, lush environment filled with flowers and flowing water. Berger stared at the surroundings in confusion, wondering what had happened. A message displayed that Berger's tower, 4th floor, was undergoing naturalization. He looked around at the transformed environment as butterflies and greenery filled the area. The princess, surrounded by elemental spirits, greeted him casually. He observed her, realizing she had created an entire ecosystem inside the magic tower. He noted that such a feat could only be accomplished by someone who mastered all 4 elements. He recalled that he had gone to the 13th princess's castle, and thought that only one spiritist on the continent was capable of this. He concluded that she was not the 13th princess. The girl confirmed this, saying she expected him to mistake her for Elena. Startled, he began to question her identity. She introduced herself as Erin Hilderin, declaring that she was the first princess of the Hilderin Kingdom. Far away, in the Hilderin Kingdom, an announcement echoed that the first princess had been abducted by a demon king. The furious king roared in his throne room, demanding to know who had kidnapped his daughter, Princess Erhan. In his rage, he ordered the strongest heroes in the entire military to mobilize immediately. His soldiers vowed to kill the demon king and rescue the princess. Far away, Erhan calmly explained to the demon king that this was the reason she had asked him earlier, whether he could handle her. Berger added that he had heard rumors about a genius elemental mage overflowing with mana, yet he had failed to sense anything from her. Berger questioned how she had deceived him. Erhan revealed a ring on her hand, explaining that it allowed her to hide her mana, and that it was a royal heirloom passed down through generations. She asked if that answered his question and wondered if he intended to send her back. He stayed silent. He considered the consequences. Returning her would make him a laughingstock, and no kingdom would fear a coward. It would also hinder the collection of demonic energy. He decided he needed to see this through. Suddenly, alerts appeared around around him, detecting hostility directed toward him and marking Berger Diaz. His demonic energy total was displayed, 19,521 points. Realizing he had been singled out, he told Erhan that her identity changed nothing. She is still his hostage. In the Hilderan kingdom, the king sits in his hall as his order echoes once more to kill the demon king and retrieve his daughter. Ministers inform him they still do not know which demon king is responsible, and that patrols have been sent. Frustrated, the king shouts at them to hurry and solve it, accusing them of doing nothing while the princess has been kidnapped. A minister points out an odd detail. The demon king of lust recently abducted a prince from another nation and was then killed by heroes. Despite that incident, another demon king has now taken their princess, which the minister finds unusual. The realization startles the gathered officials, and the king grips his throne tightly. He concludes it must be a newly appeared demon king. A report arrives stating that traces of teleportation magic were found, heading north toward the Urgist Mountains. Hearing the location, the king reacts with shock. Meanwhile, in the Urgist Mountains, Berger's tower stands surrounded by snow. Inside, Gordon informs Berger that Hilderan's army will arrive soon. He asks if their numbers will be too much for him to handle. Berger answers that it is fine and says the kingdom of Hilderan will not be able to reach the tower, whereas Hilderan's king studies the map during a war council. The Urgist Mountains lie at the northern edge of the continent, while Hilderan sits far to the south. He states that it is impossible for all the nations between them to allow their army to pass. Meanwhile, Berger explains that they will be forced to hire a hero guild instead. The king acknowledges they have no choice and orders the hero guild to be contacted. At the hero guild, news spreads that the princess of Hilderan has been kidnapped. Adventurers react in disbelief, wondering which demon king would attempt such a thing. When they hear the destination is Urgist, complaints rise about the danger of that region, and some refuse to risk dying for the job. One adventurer remarks that the king of Hilderan will suffer. Berger comments that the hero guild will not act because they only care about money. He adds that the guild would not want to go somewhere so dangerous, which is why he built his base there. Gordon watches him and thinks that he even considered that. He observes that Berger does not follow the usual rules, yet seems very knowledgeable about Arene. He thinks Berger acts as if he has been here before. In Hilderan, the king erupts in anger, shouting that no hero is willing to take the job, and questioning how they can call themselves heroes. It's obvious that Arene has many heroes, but they care more about profits, which makes them extremely selective. The demon king Berger reviews the tower system, noting that it will take time before a proper hero group is formed, and that it will take time for them to reach the tower as well. He admits he does not have enough demonic energy to handle an entire army of heroes. He recalls the fear of facing heroes and acknowledges he knows that fear too well. He then orders Gordon to contact Draxon, declaring that he intends to sell demonic energy. Gordon begins to contact, but as soon as he realizes that the demon king Berger wants to sell demonic energy, he screams in disbelief at the idea of selling it. He describes demonic energy as the currency of dreams, capable of transcending the limits of their species and unlocking tower functions while bringing in monsters. He asks if he truly wants to exchange it for human money. While sitting on his throne, Berger starts to thinking that Draxon will pay a huge sum for something. He considers that he cannot stop the heroes with his current demonic energy, but with human money, there is something he can do. Holton Wharf, a fortress city near the Urgist Mountains, comes into view under a clear sky. At the city gate, a cloaked figure approaches. Soldiers shout for him to stop. They identify him as a mercenary and question what kind of mercenary would go to the Urgist Mountains alone, calling him suspicious. One soldier draws his weapon as the mercenary stands before them. Inside the gate, Berger as mercenary walks silently, while soldiers behind him say he will be paid half-half and ask if he trusts them. He ignores them and thinks about his next step. He walks through the busy city, thinking that he cannot look around on his own and deciding to find a guide first. Inside the Scarlet Hawk Mercenary Guild headquarters, mercenaries relax. One asks the captain if they should leave soon. Another replies that it is too nice here. They explain that soldiers take care of the monsters while they collect the spoils of battle, wondering what could be better than this place. Another mercenary talks about news of a new demon king setting up a tower on the Urgist Mountains. Someone dismisses it as fake, saying the others do not understand demon kings, who always set their towers where heroes can easily reach them. A younger mercenary says he heard the demon king kidnapped the princess of Hildreen. Another scoffs, asking if he has ever seen a demon king travel to the other end of the continent to kidnap a princess. The mercenaries continue their conversation. One of them mentions that the hero guild turned down a job after hearing about the destination. Another dismisses concerns, claiming the situation is only a show, and calling a princess a precious heir. He insists it is a trick to extract more money. The others agree, laughing loudly. Berger suddenly appears behind one of the laughing men, surprising him. The man falls back in fear, shouting. Berger addresses the group, noting that they seem knowledgeable, and orders all of them to leave except for one. The mercenaries react aggressively, accusing Berger of infiltrating the place and threatening his life. They rush at at him with weapons, but Berger swiftly overpowers them, sending several crashing to the ground and knocking others aside in rapid succession. One remaining attacker leaps at him with a shout. He strikes downward with force, creating a burst that shatters the floor beneath his target. Berger blocked the man's attack in middle of the air with controlled aggression. From above, armed men rush toward Berger, but the clash sends bodies and fragments of furniture flying across the hall. The assault continues with rapid blows that topple several attackers. A survivor stares at the aftermath, calling Berger a monster as Berger stands with a sharp, composed expression. Outside, townspeople hear violent impacts coming from the building. Two individuals remark that fighting has started again and question how the participants never seem to grow tired. Inside the wrecked hall, unconscious bodies and ruined furniture are scattered across the floor, while Berger walks among them. One man, unable to flee, kneels and begs for mercy. Berger tells him not to be scared and promises to spare him if he answers questions. The man agrees desperately. Berger asks where the slave market is. A large estate is shown from the front. Its gates and surrounding trees stand silent in the night. Two cloaked individuals approach the property's courtyard, moving toward the entrance. Berger asks to the merchant if only human slaves are available. The merchant nervously replies if they are not to the customer's liking. The disguised Berger asks if there is anything rarer, startling the merchant, who quickly agrees and leads him elsewhere. The Demon King Berger observes the merchant's grin and wonders how he can smile after seeing his subordinates injured. He concludes that humans desiring money and demons desiring demonic energy are no different. The merchant guides him through a stairway, assuring him this is the way. The Demon King Berger recalls his earlier thought. With human money, he can buy slaves, specifically otherworldly species captured by humans. He decides that an elf known for integrity would be ideal, and plans to use such an elf as a spy to create chaos among the heroes. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, hero Hillen Cargill arrives. The king expresses trust that Hillen would accept the mission. Hillen kneels and states he will rescue the princess and bring back the Demon King's head in the name of justice. In the underground market, Berger examined the elf trapped inside a cage while planning to use him as a spy to confuse the heroes. He noted that elves were known for innocence, believing the plan would work well. The slaver merchant asked what type of slave Berger was seeking. Berger stated he intended to purchase the elven slave. He pointed to the slaver merchant beside him, saying that man would cover the payment. The slaver reacted with shock, but Berger's dark energy rose as he demanded if there was any objection. Intimidated, the man insisted he had no objection and accepted that he would be paying. Berger then instructed the two slavers to leave so he could confirm something alone. One hesitated, warning that the elf might go berserk, but Berger dismissed the concern, saying he would pay for any consequences. The slaver left reluctantly. Berger approached the cage, observing the elf reduced to a miserable state. The elf sensed Berger's energy and demanded to know if he was a demon. Questioning why a demon would want anything from an elf, Berger told him he wished to offer him a chance to take revenge on humans. The elf considers the offer, calling it tempting, but admits he cannot trust demons as much as humans. Berger states that he is different, and promises that if the elf stays loyal to him for 50 years, he will guarantee the elf's safety and freedom. He adds that 50 years is not long for elves, and that the elf's situation would be better than being humiliated by humans. The elf responds by calling him a demon, and explains that demons are trying to destroy the world tree that elves serve, along with the world it sustains. He asks how he is supposed to trust him. He also points out that it is strange for a demon to seek help from an elf, leaving Berger silently acknowledging the difficulty of the situation. Berger agrees to proceed and declares a vow based on the great Demon King's standards, promising to fulfill his word and not lay a hand on the world tree. The elf recognizes that the Demon King's standards hold the same weight for demons as the world tree does for elves. Berger then asks the elf to vow on the world tree in return, pledging allegiance to him for 50 years. The elf reacts with surprise, then smirks, calling Berger strange. He adds that if Berger is willing to go that far, then so will he. Granada of the Maple tribe faced Berger and stated his name. He added that he would make his vow only after meeting the Demon King who had sent Berger. Berger answered that he himself is the Demon King, leaving Granada stunned. Granada burst into laughter, insisting the idea was impossible. He argued that a Demon King would never come so far, that a Demon King weakened away from the tower, and that it made no sense to travel only to buy a slave. He claimed that if Berger truly were the Demon King, he would pledge allegiance for 100 years instead. He continued laughing until the scene shifts at Berger's tower on the 5th floor. Berger repeated Granada's own words about a 100-year contract. Granada realized the truth and reacted in shock, shouting that the situation was a scam. He protested that no one had mentioned the tower being empty, complained that there was nothing on the first 3 floors, and pointed out that the 4th floor held only nature. He questioned why a tower contained not a single monster. Granada warned that Berger would not last a year, and that heroes would tear him apart. He declared he would never work in such a place. A surge of dark power appeared around him as the Demon King Berger reminded him that they had already made a contract. Granada sensed overwhelming pressure from pure demonic power, and realized the man before him truly truly was a demon king. As he thought about the journey through the Urgest Mountains, he noted that not a single monster had dared attack them. All of them were disaster-level creatures, and he understood they could not risk provoking the demon king. He concluded that no one would dare oppose them, and that a demon king was still a demon king. Granada knelt and swore, in the name of the World Tree, that from that moment on his loyalty belonged to the demon king for the next 100 years. Since the demon king himself had come to retrieve him, he assumed he would be given an important role. He believed he would be able to take his vengeance as part of whatever grand plan awaited. The demon king Berger responded by ordering him to prepare a meal. Granada froze in confusion. He had expected an important mission, not some women's thing like kitchen duty. A moment later, he found himself cooking, chopping ingredients, while thinking that he was supposed to take part in something significant. Ernan, being a woman, approached and offered to help in the kitchens, asking to make vegetable bread, and Granada continued cooking wordlessly. Later, in the 5th-floor dining room of the tower, Granada sat at the table. He hesitantly asked the demon king whether the woman present was from the Hilderan kingdom, and the demon king Berger confirmed her identity as Ernan Hilderan. Shocked, Granada panicked, believing the demon king had kidnapped a crown princess. He complained that the tower had nothing, and questioned how they were supposed to stop the heroes. Berger answered that this was why he had brought him, instructing him to sit and eat. Granada reluctantly complied while Ernan proudly announced she had helped with the cooking. Still bewildered, he wondered what was going on. Later, on the 4th floor, Granada asked whether he was meant to fight the heroes there. Berger told him no. If heroes reached the tower, it was already too late. Instead, he explained that Granada would be disrupting the human world in his place. When Granada realized he was being asked to become a spy, Berger confirmed it, but said he needed to check his skills first. Berger challenged him, inviting him to come at him. Granada silently questioned how he was supposed to defeat a demon king inside his own tower. Berger proposed a handicap. He would use only one hand and no demonic energy, and if Granada won, their contract would be reduced by 50 years. Motivated, Granada surged with energy, declaring that the demon king had better keep his word. He prepared to attack with everything he had, determined to give his all. He unleashes a rapid series of blows, striking toward Berger. As energy bursts around them, Berger blocks the attacks with steady movements. He notes that despite Granada's long period in slavery, Granada's movements remain competent. He observes that the mana on the 4th floor seems to enhance Granada's physical abilities, a trait he considers suitable for an elf. Granada insists that an average elf cannot perform such feats, and tells Berger that he chose the wrong opponent in the wrong place. Granada then traps Berger with golden root, like restraints. Berger's eyes widen when he notices the restraint, and Granada declares Berger is exposed and that he plans to reclaim 50 years from him. Berger, however, determines that the situation meets his standards, but reminds the elf internally that the opponent he faces is not to be underestimated. He appears behind Granada, overpowers him, and states that he is not using demonic energy and will restrain his strength to avoid killing him. Granada panics and attempts to resist, but Berger strikes, sending him crashing downward with a loud impact. The narrative shifts to Horton Walk, the headquarters of the Red Hawk mercenaries, where the exterior of the building stands beneath mountains. The mercenary captain greets Berger with exaggerated enthusiasm. Berger states his intention to hire the captain for a year, prompting the captain to ask about the budget while privately wondering if he should change professions. Berger presents a heavy bag of gold as the deposit, shocking the captain. The mercenaries immediately pledge lifelong loyalty to their captain. Though the captain quietly considers finding a new squad, Berger instructs him to add Granada to the team, explaining that Granada will relay Berger's orders. The captain accepts while the others hesitate about including a stranger. Granada introduces himself with a bruised face. The mercenaries stare at him in silence, then surround him and accept him warmly. Berger observes them, noting that although they appear mediocre, they are experienced mercenaries known throughout Urges and difficult to replace. He considers the timing and thinks about Hillen Carbil, the hero capable of responding to the Hilderan Kingdom's call, known for defeating the demon king of lust. Berger then announces their first mission as the Red Hawk mercenaries. The mercenary group listens as their new orders are delivered. Berger instructs them to investigate Hillen Cargil, the hero employed by Hilderan. After giving the command, he turns his attention toward his own goal. Berger travels to Berger's tower, standing alone in a vast, snowy landscape. With the matter of the hero entrusted to Granada, he focuses on increasing his own strength. He reviews how demonic energy points can enhance either the tower or the demon king himself. Since he has already sold his points, the only method left for him to grow stronger is the Spirit Blossom. A description follows. The Spirit Blossom is a crystal of mana formed by absorbing the mana of nature. Once consumed, it grants a tremendous increase in strength. In the Urgest Mountains, surrounded by mana storms and powerful monsters, untouched nature allows these blossoms to form. Over long years, they refine their energy even further. Recognizing the mountains as a treasure trove of spirit blossoms, Berger prepares to search for them. Though they are less effective for demons than pure demonic energy, they remain valuable. Gordon Dirick, his aide, cautions him that going without preparation is risky. comparing it to searching for a needle in the desert. He warns that monsters will attack the moment they sense weakness. Berger replies that handling monsters will not be an issue, but locating the blossoms will be difficult, just as Gordon said. Gordon adds that finding them would require an excellent mana detector. A knock echoes through the hall, drawing the attention of the two men standing before the door. Confused, they turn as the door slowly opens. Peeking inside, the girl hesitates, calling out softly. She steps in further, asking if they are busy. Both men react with surprise. Later, outside the grand building, she walks energetically beside Berger, lifting her arms with excitement while small spirit creatures float around them. She expresses how thrilled she is, thinking to herself that she has been more than a little bored. She reminds Berger that he must keep his promise. She wants to decorate the 4th floor as she wishes. He answers that she may, as long as she can find the spirit blossoms. He privately wonders how far she intends to go, noting she has already decorated things to her taste. He reflects that the idea of decorating a demon king's tower is already unbelievable. She admits she did not expect to leave the tower and is glad she came to check. As she pulls on her glove, puzzled, he tells her to hold on tight. A burst of light surrounds them as they take off, and she is swept upward. She squeezes her eyes shut, then slowly opens them. She finally sees the world clearly, something she had missed before because it had been dark on the day she was kidnapped. As Berger carried the princess, Ernan, through the blazing sky, she looked down at the world and thought about how vast it was. She remembered how every day of her past life had repeated itself with magic training, etiquette lessons, studying, and more training. She had believed she would continue like that until the day she died. Now, while flying beside Berger, she told him that the only person known to fly over the Beast Mountains was probably her now. He replied that he didn't care, and insisted she focus on what she had to do. When he tried to address her formally as princess, she told him to call her Ernan. Since they would be seeing each other often, he said it would be better that way. She hesitated silently. Berger wondered if he had let her have her way too much. He told her she seemed to be forgetting her place, and asked if she wanted to move to the underground prison. She apologized immediately. He instructed her to use her spirits to find the spirit blossoms. Her spirits scattered, and she called after one of them as it drifted away. Berger observed that they probably wouldn't find it quickly, but felt confident they would be faster than Gordon or himself. Soon after, one spirit cried out that it had found something. Ahead of them, a glowing blue blossom rose from the ground, but a horde of large beastmen approached the flower from all sides. Berger noted that some guests had arrived before them. He ordered the beasts to leave the blossom untouched and depart if they still had any demon honor. The beasts refused, declaring they did not obey demons and would kill him instead. Berger laughed, realizing Gordon had been right, and berated himself for expecting beasts to think. Shadowed flames gathered in his hands as he prepared to fight, announcing that he would burn them all to ashes. The beast folk roared their intent to kill and protect what was theirs. As they charged, Berger released a surge of dark power, blasting them back. The beast's screams echoed as his magic tore through them. More rushed in, shouting to attack the weaker one first. The orcs fell one after another, leaving Ernan standing alone in shock as she stared at the collapsing bodies. She froze when the weight of the situation reached her. Above her, Berger raised his glowing hands, dark power swirling around him. A violent burst of purple energy erupted from his attack, tearing through the battlefield. The force swept past Ernan, who barely held her ground. She watched in disbelief as the orcs, known for defeating even ogres when united, were unable to approach them at all. Realization formed within her mind. Berger gathered power overhead, preparing another strike. He released a massive wave of destructive energy, announcing the power of the Demon King through the devastation that followed. When the dust settled, the battlefield was silent and covered in snow. Ernan stepped forward to examine a crystal-like blossom. She was amazed by its purity. Berger identified it as hyacinth, a water ice attribute spirit blossom, and warned her not to covet it. She reluctantly agreed. He then told her she could have one if she found more, which encouraged her to try harder. Although she searched until exhaustion, she never found a second patch. Berger carried her away as the snowstorm continued. Their journey eventually brought them to Berger's tower. Berger stood outside with the hyacinth crystal in hand, acknowledging Ernan Hilderan as the crown princess of Hilderan. Ernan Hilderan's name echoed in the Demon King's thoughts as he examined the glowing hyacinth blossom in his hand. He reflected that, at first, he had thought its appearance was a mistake, yet he now considered that Ernan might be more useful than he initially believed. Ernan slept peacefully on the grass, wrapped in her large black coat, the small flame spirit resting on her. Gordon approached the Demon King and announced that a contact from Granada had arrived. The Demon King Berger acknowledged the news, noting the speed of the report. He was informed that hero Hilan Cargill and the other 32 heroes had departed from the capital of Hilderan. They were not heading toward Urgist. Instead, they were taking the classic path of a hero, forming a party and growing by completing villagers' quests. Then Gordon explained that the heroes would become stronger through their journey. The Demon King Berger revealed that he had prepared several plans for the hero's journey and instructed Gordon to read them slowly. He then dismissed all of the plans. He declared that, this time, no monsters would be sent, nor would there be any interruptions to the hero's journey. His subordinate reacted with confusion. The Demon King Berger explained that half-baked interruptions only strengthened heroes, and ordered that this message be delivered to Granada. He instructed to tell this to Granada, that he join the hero's journey with the mercenaries, and help them and build their trust. Gordon hesitated. The Demon King Berger continued, stating that, although he was departing from the standard approach, their current tower could not stop the heroes. He assured Gordon that he would reinforce their tower He concluded with the intention of reinforcing it with a dwarf, prompting Gordon to react in shock at the idea of adding a dwarf alongside the human and high elf. Gordon expressed concern that if anyone saw the diminutive species in their tower, they would become a laughingstock. Berger responded calmly that they were not saying they would stop the heroes with just a dwarf. He clarified that they needed dwarven magical tools and asked the other to think about that for a moment. He continued to explain that the heroes had become accustomed to the Demon King's standards, expecting only weak monsters on the first floor, but they proposed the idea of dozens of cannons welcoming the heroes instead. Gordon realized that the heroes would never be prepared for such an attack, though he noted that this was far from the Demon King's usual standards. The scene shifts and we see Wolfner, a dwarven underground city. Inside the city, a dwarf strikes hot metal, sparks flying with each blow. He is introduced as the best dwarven blacksmith, Lager Friedrich, and he lets out a short grunt. Berger stands cloaked in the city and reflects that he fought countless dwarves before his regression, but this is his first time visiting their city in person. A sign shows a place called the Midnight Inn. Inside, Berger says he came to commission a weapon but does not know the way, and asks where he can find the best blacksmith in the city. The dwarf replies that for a human he should know the proper way to speak to them. Berger answers that he heard, dwarves love money as much as heroes do. The dwarf agrees that he is not wrong. The dwarf tells Berger to head into the inner city, where he will find a massive crater, and to take the elevator down. The elevator will scan his ID and drop him at his requested floor, and that is a double security measure to filter out intruders. The elevator moves downward into the depths of the city. Berger steps forward as the elevator reaches the bottom. He must take the elevator to the very bottom floor and find the deepest room. Berger stands before a long sealed corridor as heavy sounds echo around him. He looks ahead in silence while the sounds continue. Here he will find the city's greatest blacksmith. A violent burst of sparks and heat erupts ahead as a dwarf hammers metal with overwhelming force. The dwarf's name is Lager Friedrich. Berger observes the work and notes that it is metallurgy that makes mana dance, and wonders if this is the work of the greatest blacksmith. Berger considers quietly kidnapping the dwarf. A sudden explosion of force erupts and Berger reacts in shock. Berger realizes the dwarf sensed his faint demonic energy and wonders if this man is truly that individual. Berger asked if Lager is a hero. Lager declares that he is the hero Lager Friedrich, the blacksmith who imbues the power of the hero. He warns that for a demon to fearlessly step foot in the city of dwarves, he should not expect to leave alive. Berger responds that for all that talk, Lager is quite weak, and adds that he is not a demon. Berger reveals that he is a demon king as overwhelming power erupts and Lager reacts in pain. The hammer crashes to the ground nearby. Dwarven guards rush in, apologizing for the intrusion and asking what the noise was. The room is left in ruins, filled with dust, and Lager is no longer there. The dwarves shout that Lager is gone and that an intruder kidnapped him, repeating the alarm. The city is ordered to search everywhere, insisting the intruder could not have gone far. From above the city, Berger is already gone, carrying Lager with him. Berger warns Lager that if he makes a loud noise, he will be killed immediately. Lager questions why a demon king like Berger would come after the princess, and accuses him of that intention. Berger responds that he is not interested in a princess. Lager shouts that Berger is lying. Berger says he is serious and mentions that he heard dwarf blacksmiths dig their own tunnels just in case, then tells Lager to lead the way. Lager thinks that a demon king must be targeting the princess and stays silent. Lager curses and thinks that he lived quietly all this time just to avoid fighting demon kings, then questions why this is happening to him. Well, this dwarf is a hero, whose trait is weakness. Berger remarks that Lager does not seem keen on sharing information and proposes another option. Berger states that he will kidnap the princess and let Lager go. Lager reacts in shock and demands to know what Berger is plotting. Berger asks what would be if everyone know that the selfish hero sold out the princess to save his own life. Lager points out the direction and thinks that if a rumor like that spreads, the dwarves will look down on him. Lager thinks that he is already known for being weak, and that if people say he sold out the princess, everyone will believe it. So basically this path is a one-way ticket to a lifetime of torture. Berger tells Lager to choose for himself and decide whether to sell the princess or follow him. Lager thinks that choosing the princess is obvious, but fears being tortured. Berger promises Lager's safety if he helps and swears it on the standard of the Demon King. Lager realizes that the standard is like a religion to demon kings, and that Berger would not break a vow made on it. He hesitates and repeats that if that is the case, he then agrees and urgently tells Berger that they should move to the tunnel immediately, addressing him as Demon King Nim, while Berger asks what that expression is about. Whereas at Lager's workshop, the princess of Dwarven Kingdom, Louise Verft softly calls out his name and wonders where he went in the middle of making her weapon. Someone tells the princess that it seems Roger was kidnapped. She angrily shuts that down, insisting that Lager is a hero too and questioning how it makes sense for a hero to be kidnapped. Another dwarf hesitates and says that Lager is a hero, but also a blacksmith, so his combat power is limited. Verft cuts him off and orders them to find Lager and the kidnapper and bring Lager before her. She threatens that if they do not find him, they should prepare to have their heads ripped off, and someone curses in fear, whereas at Roger's secret passage, Lager crawls through a narrow tunnel while Berger follows behind him. Berger complains about how long he has to stare at an unpleasant view, while Lager nervously explains that the tunnel is narrow and he cannot help it. He says they are almost there, and asks Berger to bear with it, but Berger tells him to walk faster. They emerge to a high underground area, overlooking a guarded path and structures below, while Lager crouches near the exit, and Berger stands behind him in silence. Lager says that his role ends here, and that he has shown the tunnel, so Berger's on his own, then says he is leaving. Berger questions what kind of nonsense that is, as dark power rises around him. Lager panics and reminds Berger that he swore on the standard and promised to guarantee his safety if he helped. Berger responds that he does not care about that standard at all. Lager is shocked and thinks that this demon king is crazy. Berger asks what he should do with Lager. Lager falls back in fear and regrets that he did not just say he would sell the princess. He hurriedly claims that he is very useful, says no one can match his metallurgy skills, and insists he can make any weapon Berger desires. Berger asks if a hero truly wants to cooperate voluntarily with a demon king. Lager immediately agrees, says Berger can use him however he wants, and even offers to steal information about the dwarven city. He thinks that for now survival is what matters. Berger remarks on that level of loyalty, and says that he will grant Lager mercy. Lager bows repeatedly toward Berger, thanking him over and over, and shouting long live the great demon king. He suddenly thinks that Berger is stupid for believing he would submit so easily, and declares that once he leaves this place Berger is finished. Lager freezes as the situation abruptly changes. Before he can react, he was at Berger's tower, 4th floor. He stands in a bright field, stunned, as several figures are present around him. Gordon reacts in disbelief that the demon king brought a dwarf, then realizes Lager is a hero and questions how a hero could be brought there. Berger tells him to be quiet, whereas Granada says there is a report to make, and questions whether dwarves are now being accepted, but is told it can wait. Erhan asks Lager if he is the hero who came to save her, while Lager can only stare in silence. Lager nervously asks why he is here and says he was told he would be released. Berger replies that he never said that, only that Lager would be allowed to live. Lager panics and asks how he ended up there. Berger explains that he knocked Lager out and carried him along, adding that there is no telling what Lager might have done on the way otherwise. Lager laughed. He let out a short breath, then continued laughing harder, repeating it again and again. He kept laughing loudly while others stood watching him from behind, and his laughter did not stop. Berger asked if Lager was really that happy about becoming his subordinate. He answered yes without hesitation and said that he was very happy, still laughing. Berger approved Lager's mindset and said he would give him a mission. Lager asked what it was. Berger ordered him to install massive artillery on the 1st floor and to smash all the heroes. The scene moved to a building identified as the Urgest Heroes Journey Preparation Station. Granada said that a rumor was spreading throughout the hero's journey. He said people were claiming that the new demon king could wield black flames, and because of that the heroes had begun equipping themselves with fire-resistant gear. Granada then mentioned whispers that the new demon king had not deployed any demonic beasts because he was afraid. He thought that they had not lost their killing intent yet. Berger said that the heroes would not be able to obtain anything from the hero's journey, whether it was honor from battle or wealth. In the end, he said they would lose interest, and the heroes would not be able to grow. He added that it was a battle against time and said there were no problems, instructing Granada to keep monitoring them. Granada said that he understood. He thought that Berger was weakening the heroes by not sending out demonic monsters. He considered that the demon king was very knowledgeable about human nature and wondered if there had ever been a demon king like him before. Granada walked into a large hall filled with people and thought that he was glad Berger was not his enemy, whereas at the tower, Berger stated that there was one restriction and said mana stones could not be used. He added that he did not care how the 1st floor was remodeled as long as that restriction was followed. Lager said that a trap without a mana stone would not work on the heroes. Berger told him that figuring that out was his job. Lager hesitated and tried to object. Berger explained that heroes receive love from this dimension and that their ability to sense energy is outstanding. He said that if traps were created using mana stones, the heroes would figure them out before the traps could activate. Berger said he was sure he had brought the best blacksmith with him. He added that if he had made a mistake, then he would have no choice but to bring someone else there. Lager suddenly said that there was a way after all. Berger responded that he should have said so earlier and asked what it was. Lager explained that he had invented a magical tool that could hide traces of mana. He said it took 3 years to create, but he already had one in his workshop. Berger questioned whether that was the only excuse Lager could think of to escape. Lager hurriedly insisted that he was being serious. Berger said he would trust him but immediately asked what Lager had put around his neck. Berger explained that it was a magical tool that could separate Lager's head from his body and that he could activate it with one hand. Lager reacted in shock. Berger added that the tool also made it so people could not see Lager's face, and warned that if Lager took it off, it would be considered escaping. Lager swore that he would never take it off. Berger told him to move, and Lager answered obediently. After that, Berger went to several kingdoms to gather supplies and mana-type materials. It took roughly a month to gather the materials needed and store them inside his subspace pocket. After that, they returned to Wolfner. The princess shouted that it had already been a month and a half and demanded to know why they still had not found him. She angrily called them incompetent and asked how much longer she was supposed to remain patient. A dwarf explained that the blacksmiths had dug out too many tunnels and that every single one was being investigated, but it was highly likely that they had already left. The princess shouted that of course they had, saying it would be stupid for them to still be there since he had been kidnapped. She declared that she would give them exactly 2 more weeks and warned that if the kidnapper was not found by then, they were going to die. The dwarf panicked and promised to find them. The princess princess ordered them to immediately fill all the tunnels the blacksmiths had created. The soldiers responded that they would do it right away. The princess stood alone among the scattered rubble. She looked down at a broken weapon and said it should have been her weapon. The weapon had been made by Loger before he was kidnapped. She begged for Loger to be alive and said he could not die until he completed her weapon. She then turned her head, reacting to something behind her. Loger worked inside a tunnel while a system message stated that a face recognition interfering mask was in operation. The princess realized that this was one of Loger's secret tunnels, and noted that only he knew about it. She wondered if that meant he was there. She called out Loger's name. Loger looked up and hesitated as another system message showed the mask was still active. He weakly addressed her as princess and faltered. The princess laughed briefly and said he had come back after all. She accused Loger of hiding because he did not want to make her weapon and asked if that was really the case. She denied any misunderstanding and accused him of insulting her. She declared that from then on, Loger belonged to her and would make her weapons for the rest of his life. She added that before that, she would punish him for running away. Loger panicked and begged her to spare him. A sudden attack struck between them and interrupted the moment. The princess jumped back and demanded to know who it was. Berger stepped forward and told Loger to get the equipment he needed. Loger immediately agreed and ran off. System message showed that a face recognition interfering mask was still in operation, as Berger stood in front of the princess with dark energy gathering around his arm. The princess demanded to know who he was and questioned why he was helping that blacksmith. Berger calmly stated that he was the master of the pitiful blacksmith she had been extorting. The princess dismissed his words as nonsense and declared that Loger was her slave who would make her weapons forever. She charged at Berger and demanded to know who he thought he was to take Loger away from her. Their attacks collided as energy burst between them. Berger struck back, sending force crashing through the space. The princess recovered and moved in again, raising her glowing fist and saying that it was Loger's turn now. Before she could finish, Berger appeared above her and grabbed her by the head, stopping her mid-attack. Blows exchanged rapidly as Berger and the princess clashed at close range. Berger remembered the princess as Louise Werft, the Dwarven Kingdom's second princess, and stated that although she was not a hero, she was exceptionally strong. Before Berger regressed, she had been one of the strongest and far stronger than she was now. Berger assessed that he could kill her before she grew stronger, but doing so would require using all of his strength and demonic energy, and he was no longer as strong as he had been before regressing. He realized that he might get captured by her soldiers, since he had already revealed himself as a demon king, and found the situation annoying. Nearby, Loger coughed as debris fell around him. Berger asked Loger if he had gotten everything. Loger panicked and said he was currently dismantling it as fast as he could. A large device was shown and identified as Mana's Phantom, an extremely large creation that hid traces of Mana and had been created by Loger Friedrich. Berger warned that if Loger did not want to die, he needed to finish within a minute. Loger cried out and said he would go as fast as he could. The princess shouted in disbelief, demanding to know who had said he could do that. Berger declared that if he kept pushing, he would leave him behind. Loger shouted that he would wrap things up quickly. Berger thought that he had no idea how long he could last without his real strength and demonic energy. The princess charged down with explosive force, colliding with Berger in a violent clash. She declared that she did not know where he came from, but swore that he would not leave the place alive. She turned her rage toward Loger and said she would break his legs so he could never escape. Berger sneered that she sounded just like a demon king, and told her to give it up, calling her the second princess of the dwarves. He stated that he was taking her blacksmith and her equipment. A shout rang out as Loger announced that he had dismantled it. The princess screamed in fury, cursing Loger for coming back to take it and mocking him for thinking it would be easy. Berger noticed an opening. He struck the princess hard, sending her crashing down. Immediately after, Berger called out to Loger and activated his subspace pocket, ordering him to move out of the way. The princess shouted that the attack was useless against her. Before she can understand anything, the machine was gone, and she froze in shock. Soldiers in the distance shouted, asking what was going on. The princess turned toward them in anger and cursed them as slowpokes, demanding to know if they were only going to arrive after she was dead. She immediately ordered them to chase Loger through the tunnel, shouting that he had run away. The ground exploded as she struck it in rage. She paused and wondered if he had blocked the tunnel, then questioned whether he really did not want to make her weapon that badly. Her expression twisted into a smile as she said it was intriguing, truly intriguing. Calling Loger by name, she declared that she would search for him herself, even if she had to scour the entire continent. Laughing, she said she would make him regret what he did today. The scene shifted to Berger's tower, first floor, where the massive device stood in place as people gathered below it. Gordon and Erhan stared at the massive device as one of them muttered in disbelief, asking what it was. Erhan reacted with awe, saying it was huge. Berger stood in front of them and explained that it was a magical tool necessary to stop the heroes. Loger reported that the installation of Mana's Phantom was complete. Berger remarked that it was fast and ordered him to activate it. Loger answered respectfully and agreed. Berger thought that after all the trouble they went through to bring it there, it had better be worth it. Loger nervously confirmed and announced that he was activating it. The device began to glow and spin, releasing a blinding blue light. A system message stated that the tower recognized Mana's Phantom and asked whether synchronization should begin, noting that it required 10,000 points. Berger questioned whether the tower really had a function like synchronization and decided to confirm it himself. He gave his answer and agreed. Another message showed that points were consumed. A following message stated that Mana's Phantom now recognized Demon King Berger Datas as its master. The device pulsed with purple energy, as another system message announced that its power source had been completely converted from mana to demonic energy. Berger called Loger by name. Loger hurriedly insisted that he had not not done anything, and said he never imagined that merging with a tower was possible. He added that even the power source had changed from mana to demonic energy, and called it the discovery of the century, saying even the creator would not know about it. Berger told Erhan to try using any spell. She repeated the word any, and confidently said she could use whatever she wanted. She unleashed a spell, forming a massive, swirling attack. Gordon screamed in despair, saying they had just cleaned the tower and telling her to stop. The spell continued, and Gordon shouted again for it to stop. Berger thought that normally, using a spell of that caliber inside the tower should be detectable, even from outside. He then noted that despite that, he could not see anything inside. He realized he could not feel a single presence. He questioned whether this was the power of a tower synchronized with Mana's phantom. Berger moved forward and thought that if he manipulated the tower in this state, something more would happen. He reached out as something strange happened. He realized that the tower had vanished. The tower reappeared again, wrapped in a dark, unstable energy. Berger understood that he could now hide the tower as he wished. A system display showed that his demonic energy points dropped sharply from 1,182 to 137, and he noted that it consumed a large amount of demonic energy. He admitted that using it right now was difficult, but decided it would be useful in the future. Loger shouted excitedly, begging Berger to let him examine both the device and the tower, calling it a historic discovery unlike anything in the past or present. Berger thought that Loger sounded like a demon itching for a fight. Berger agreed, saying that if Loger wiped out the heroes on the first floor, he would let him do whatever he wanted. Loger eagerly accepted and yelled for the crafty heroes to be swept away. Later, Berger stood beside the princess and told her that he also had a proposal for her. He instructed her to face the heroes who would come up to the fourth floor. Erhan reacted in shock and asked if Berger wanted her to fight the heroes, pointing out that she was a princess. Berger replied that she was also a genius spirit who wanted to return to her own royal palace. She fell silent. Berger thought that it might be unreasonable to assign her a role like this. He noted that she was an innocent princess who did not understand how the world worked, and that making her betray her own kind might be questionable. Erhan began thinking about what she should fight with, wondering about fire or water, then dismissed rocks. Berger cut her off and told her to forget it. He said she only needed to fluster the heroes and reveal to them that she was an enemy. He added that if it went well, he would grant her what she wanted again. Erhan agreed and said she would look for an opening, but added a condition. She asked to be introduced as the Demon King's subordinate, not as a princess. After a brief pause, Berger agreed, thinking that it was easy enough to do. Erhan then wondered how she was supposed to fight and asked if she should use her looks to seduce them, confidently saying she could do that. Berger told her to just do what he said, and she agreed. Later, Berger observed that with this, the preparations were more or less complete. He planned to reduce the number of heroes with mana cannons on the first floor, and then finish the rest on the fourth floor by using Erhan as bait. Even so, he noted that it was still far from enough. He acknowledged that as things stood, he could not even cut down half of the heroes, whose number exceeded 200. He wondered if all he had to do in the end was become stronger himself. He held a purple flower identified as hyacinth, an ice water elemental spirit blossom contaminated by demonic energy. He noted that spirit blossoms tainted by demonic energy were especially effective against demons, and decided he would have to gather more. Later, Berger said that we're heading out, and Erhan cheered excitedly. They arrived in a snowy land where Erhan said there was no one there either. Berger remarked that it was already their third attempt, and that maybe they had just been unlucky. He called the spirits useless, and Erhan said it was strange. Footsteps sounded nearby. A large blue-skinned orc appeared, staring at them. Berger asked if it was orcs again and said he was sick of them. The orc introduced himself as Krutu, the chieftain of the Blue Frost tribe, and respectfully greeted the Demon King. Krutu knelt and begged Berger to accept his tribe as his own. Other orcs bowed deeply and begged to be accepted as his kin. Berger questioned whether they wanted him to take them in as his own. Krutu explained that their ancestors were demons who betrayed the demon realm, and that because they bore that original sin, they wished to serve him. He asked for the honor of serving the Demon King. Berger cut him off and told him to stop the sweet talk. He said that in the end, they only wanted to become stronger by becoming kin of the Demon King, since they were better suited to demonic energy than spirit blossoms. One of the orcs hesitated, surprised. Berger told them that since they claimed to have seen through everything, there was no point in hesitating, and ordered them to bring it. Krutu responded in confusion. A box was opened, revealing several glowing spirit blossoms inside. Berger remarked that this was why they could not find them. He noted their fluent speech, preparation, and ability to negotiate, and commented that they were unusually intelligent for orcs. Krutu explained that to survive in the harsh land, their tribe valued wisdom more than strength. Berger asked if that was why they came looking for him, because they lacked strength. Krutu lowered his head. Berger repeated the words wisdom over strength, and smiled faintly. He then said that he liked them. He agreed and said very well. He stated that he would only take Krutu in. He ordered Krutu to roam the snowfields and grow his tribe for his sake, then told him to wait for orders, promising a reward greater than strength. Berger declared that the tribe would be eternal. Krutu transformed as demonic energy engulfed him, and a status display identified him as Krutu, a pool orc, now a Demon King's kin. Krutu bowed deeply and thanked him, vowing to devote his loyalty to the Demon King. The other orcs echoed the pledge. A display showed the frost across mountains, Berger's tower at full force, and outside the tower, the Pule Orc Legion. Another display showed the tower's first floor with Loger and 60 mana cannons, and the fourth floor with Erhan Hilderin. Berger observed that everything was now in place. He then called out for the heroes to come, stating that he would repay them for the humiliation of his previous life. After some time, in the forest, a hero named Hillen arrived at the place with Granada. Hillen declared that finally they have arrived at the Urgest Mountains. Some time ago, at the hero's journey preparation base, inside a large hall, many people sit at long tables prepared for a banquet. An older man thanks the hero and expresses gratitude for the magnificent banquet prepared by Lord Castellan. He then says that he is honored to share a page of history together, and Hillen thanks him in return. The older man suggests that Lord Hillen should say a few words. Hillen reacts in confusion while being told that everyone is waiting. After a brief hesitation, the older man urged again as the crowd calls for Hillen to speak. Several attendees look toward the front in anticipation. Hillen clears his throat to address the gathering. He addresses everyone present, including comrades, heroes, nobles, knights, mages, mercenaries, and merchants, and states that their long expedition is finally reaching its climax. He says that they march as heroes who answered the call of justice, and that even the Demon King has not sent a single monster to stop them. He adds that they must not lower their guard, and that every possible preparation has been made. He declares that tomorrow is finally the day, raises a glass, and states that they will go to take the head of the foolish Demon King. He asks who dared to kidnap Hilderin's crown princess, Princess Ernan, says they should be reminded once again, and declares who they are. He shouts about who the true masters of this world are, and calls out for justice. The crowd responds loudly, raising their hands, and he tells everyone to eat and drink. Granada thinks that as expected by the Demon King, the size of the expedition did not increase, but it did not decrease either. Hillen's charisma is what brought the expedition this far. It is stated that he secured funding from the guilds, and kept the wavering mercenaries in line to bring them all the way here. He thinks that the tower he saw last was empty, and wonders if it will be easily conquered at this rate. He then questions whether he should backstab the heroes even now. Granada immediately rejects the thought, scolding himself for thinking that way, and thinks that if the subjugation succeeds he will be freed from the curse, so it is actually a good thing. Granada tells himself to get a grip and decides to send a report while getting some fresh air. Later at night, Granada reports that they have arrived at Horton Walk, and that they will climb the mountain tomorrow after a brief rest. Berger responds that he understands, tells him not to make contact anymore once he leaves Horton Walk, and adds that there is a warning. He warns that when climbing the mountain they must beware of the snow and must not let their guard down at night. Also, when the tower door opens, no one should be near it. Granada reacts in confusion, questioning what the warning means, but got disconnected. Hillen approaches Granada and asks why he is out there alone. Granada is startled to see Hillen and says he is just getting some cold air, then asks if something is wrong. Hillen offers Granada a drink and says it is a fruit wine that elves are said to like. Granada hesitates briefly, then thanks him. Hillen says Granada seems to have worries on his mind. Granada asks if Hillen thinks they can succeed in the Demon King subjugation. Hillen laughs lightly and says even he gets nervous too, and Granada agrees quietly. Hillen admits that he does not actually know for sure. Granada reacts in surprise. Hillen says that people trust and follow him, but subjugating a Demon King's tower is always difficult and has never been smooth, not even once. Granada points out that Hillen defeated the Demon King of Lust and says that compared to that, a newly emerged Demon King should be different. He then notes that nothing is known about how Hillen killed the Demon King of Lust and asks him to tell a heroic tale. Hillen remains silent for a moment, then says that it was only possible because he had brave comrades. He smiles and says that it was comrades who always stood in front and dealt with the monsters. Comrades like Granada. He tells Granada that he will take the lead and asks him to watch his flank, adding that if he joins forces with Granada, they will surely be victorious. Granada agrees and says he will do that. Hillen tells Granada that it is time to go inside, and the two of them walk through the entrance together. While walking, Hillen thinks that, of course, he joined forces with his comrades, and remarks to himself that this time he is counting on Elf Granada. The next morning arrives. People announce that it is the hero's march, and wish the heroes good luck, shouting for the long lives of Lord Granada and Lord Wharton. The crowd then cheers for the long life of Lord Hillen Cargill. The scene shifts to the Urgest mountain range canyon. One member says he was worried because it is Urgest, but it does not seem special. He adds that there is barely any snow, the weather is sunny, and at this rate there should be no problems reaching the tower. He concludes that the goddess of victory must be on their side. Another member recalls hearing that disaster-class monsters were crawling everywhere, and wonders if they are hibernating or something. Someone jokes that the monsters are probably scared because Hillen is here. A strange liquid appears among the group, and one person notices something unusual. He questions what it is. He suddenly shouts that it is a ghoul. More voices cry out that there is a ghoul and react in shock at its enormous size. Hillen states that they finally showed up and orders all forces to prepare for combat. He tells everyone not to panic and to protect their comrades, adding that the canyon is not long. He commands the knights to cover the mages and break through. A member reports that a frost giant has appeared at the front. Hillen reacts in surprise and orders everyone to fall back. The frost giant reveals itself in the canyon. Hillen tells Lord Wharton that while he handles the frost giant, everyone else must escape the canyon together. Lord Wharton reacts in shock and questions whether Hillen plans to face it alone. Hillen responds that it will not be a problem. Ice suddenly falls from above, crashing down near the canyon. The frost giant lunges forward, towering over Hillen. The frost giant lets out a roar. Hillen states that a frost giant will not be stronger than the demon king of lust. The frost giant raises its arm to strike. Hillen charges straight toward it, leaping forward. The frost giant swings its massive arm, smashing into the canyon wall and sending debris flying. Hillen moves in close and slashes upward with his sword. Blue energy surges as Hillen delivers a powerful strike. Hillen focuses and signals that now is the moment, unleashing another decisive attack against the frost giant. Using the opening, Hillen shouts for everyone to run. The soldiers retreat as ordered while he holds the line, intercepting the giant's attacks and forcing it back with successive blows. The giant collapses under the assault, its fall echoing through the snow-covered valley. After escaping the canyon, survivors move through a snowy forest, breathing heavily and struggling to recover. Some kneel in the snow while others steady themselves with their weapons. One person states that dozens of huge ghouls and a frost giant taller than a cliff appeared, saying the place is insane and not fit for humans. Another says that even the Demon King's tower was not this bad. Someone reports that casualties are still low and adds that if not for Lord Hillen, the damage would have been much greater. It is said that Hillen absorbed power after killing the Demon King of Lust, and someone questions whether that makes him truly comparable to a Demon King. Another responds that since Hillen already killed a Demon King, he would be even stronger, then says they understand. They conclude that as long as they trust Lord Hillen, there is nothing to worry about. Granada watches quietly and thinks that if it is Lord Hillen, then it makes sense. He thinks that Hillen might really defeat the Demon King. Far away on the snowy slopes, a large group of monsters gathers, watching the heroes from above. Granada notices them and identifies them as frost orcs, while it is stated that there is no time to rest. Hillen senses demonic energy and says they are the Demon King's minions. A powerful voice calls the heroes foolish and welcomes them to Urzist. Hillen declares that he will take care of them like that immediately, but Granada urgently asks Hillen to wait, saying something feels wrong. Hillen recalls hearing a warning to beware of the snow. Granada reacts in shock, realizing that this may be what the warning meant. Berge declares that none of them will reach the tower. Snow begins to shift and rumble around the mountain as the heroes look up, sensing danger from above. Granada panics and questions how they are supposed to beware of something like this. He curses the Demon King in anger. He realizes that it is an avalanche, then shouts for everyone to run. Snow crashes down the mountain, swallowing everything in its path as people scream. Elsewhere, Berge sits calmly on a throne while multiple system screens float around him. Berge addresses the heroes and welcomes them once again. He declares that this time he will hunt them all down. Berge gave Granada 3 warnings. He begins explaining, starting with the instruction to beware of the snow. Meanwhile, it is reported that the frost orcs were used to trigger the avalanche. A significant number were swept away, and the headcount cannot be confirmed. Someone curses in frustration. Hillen says they will camp there and search for the heroes who were swept away. The second warning was to not let your guard down. Monsters emerge in the snow at night, with ghouls and other creatures closing in. It is identified that frost giants and ghouls are approaching, and it is said that the frost orcs drove the monsters there. Someone curses the frost orcs again. From Hillen, an order is given for all forces to prepare for combat. Granada curses the Demon King repeatedly as he raises his weapon. Berge states that the pattern is clear, with avalanches during the day and monster hordes at night, repeating the words calmly. Berge continues, saying that then, before long and inevitably, the situation will reach its conclusion. 3 days after entering the Urzist mountain range, the personnel have decreased from 511 to 256, and that the hero expedition arrives at the summit. Hillen looks ahead and questions why it is not there, referring to the Demon King's tower. He shouts that it makes no sense for the tower not to be in a place heroes can easily find, and demands to know why it is not there. As Lord Wharton says they are giving up, Hillen asks Lord Wharton what he means. Lord Wharton state that the expedition is a failure and say they are sorry, but their lives are more important. Hillen lowers his head as snow falls around him. 6 days after entering the Urzist mountain range, the Demon King's tower finally appears in the distance, standing in a basin below. Hillen curses that the Demon King hid it in a basin, and as for now the remaining personnel have dropped from 256 to 52. The group rushes toward the entrance, saying that only the first floor has weaklings, and that they should hurry and wipe them all out. Berge states the third warning that when the door opens they should never be near it. Blue mana gathers and erupts outward as multiple dwarven mana cannons activate at once. Hillen reacts in shock as the attack fires. Berge declares that he will handle them all in one shot. As for now, the personnel decrease from 52 to 1. Berge reacts with mild interest, noting that the attack was insufficient to take Hillen down. Berge addresses Hillen Cargill by name. Hillen stands amid destroyed cannons and debris, looking around in confusion and questioning what just happened. He shouts at the Demon King, demanding to know what he is, then realizes that nothing is going according to plan. Granada calls out to Hillen, and Hillen asks if Granada is alright. Granada responds that he managed to dodge somehow. Hillen says it is a relief and urges him to hurry to the next floor. Granada reacts in surprise, questioning if it will be just the two of them. Hillen states that he is the hero who killed the Demon King of Lust and absorbed his power, and that a newly descended Demon King is no match for him. He adds that having Granada with him is enough. Granada agrees and says they should go together. Well, the Demon King's tower second floor is empty. Also, the Demon King's tower third floor is empty. Hillen says the tower should be overflowing with monsters, yet there is nothing, and calls the tower strange. Granada notes that both the second and third floors are completely empty, and that means Hillen says that even if the second and third floors are empty, it would not be strange no matter what appears next. At Berger's tower, fourth floor, the surroundings change into a forest filled with trees, flowers, and drifting petals. Hillen looks around and questions what this place is. Hillen notes that there was nothing on the second and third floors, but the fourth floor is a forest. He questions whether they are really inside the Demon King's tower, and Granada agrees, saying he was thinking the same thing. Erhan praises them for climbing this far. Hillen notices movement and reacts in surprise. Erhan appears and declares that she is one of the 4 heavenly kings, protecting the Demon King. She states that a dark elementalist will be their opponent. Hillen and Granada face her in shock, and Granada reacts in disbelief at who she might be. Hillen recognizes her and calls her Erhan, questioning why she looks like that. Erhan denies being a princess and declares that she is a dark elementalist. She unleashes her power and orders them to taste the power of darkness. As a massive surge of magic erupts above her, Hillen recognizes the spell as high-level spirit magic that only Erhan can use, and states that it is not something that can be used by mind control. Hillen starts to think of everything: troll orcs, an avalanche, night raids, a tower and a basin, mana cannons on the first floor, and empty second and third floors. He adds that even a crazy princess is now attacking him. He laughs briefly, then admits that he no longer understands what is happening. Hillen shouts that he does not know anything anymore, and questions why a princess would attack the hero who came to save her and try to destroy everything. Suddenly, Berger appears behind him and questions whether it is just Hillen. He attacks, and a violent explosion erupts where the strike lands. The Demon King, or say Berger, finally reveals himself, and says that Hillen is finally showing his face as he walks forward surrounded by dark power. He calls out Hillen Cargill by name. Hillen charges at him and calls him a Demon King bastard, stating that he finally revealed himself and accusing him of attacking from behind. He thinks that he will need more power and calls out for Lord Granada. He notices Granada. Hillen rushes forward again, electricity surging around him. Hillen tells Lord Granada that they should combine their strength. Granada reacts in confusion and shock. He suddenly realizes something is wrong and feels his energy draining away. Hillen states that he already warned him and repeats that as long as Granada stayed by Hillen's side, there would be no problem. Berger notices the artifact in Hillen's possession and recognizes it with surprise. Hillen explains that the artifact is a forbidden item called the Elf Eater, and it converts an elf's infinite life force into mana. Hillen adds that the flaw is that once activated, the target dies shortly after. He tells Granada that he will be fine with it, and says it is for the greater good. Granada weakly calls Hillen a scammer and a hypocrite. Berger says he likes how despicable and lowly Hillen is, and asks if Hillen would become weak again if the ring were removed. Hillen reacts in confusion and asks what he means. He laughs loudly and taunts Berger to try it if he can, saying that even the Demon King of Lust could not take the ring. Berger suddenly calls out Gordon. Hillen is confused by the name. In an instant, Hillen screams in pain as his hand is severed, blood spraying from the wound. He screams that his hand is gone and questions how it happened, stating that he sensed no presence at all. Gordon stands behind Hillen, blade lowered, stating that humans are loud and rude. Hillen moves from there in an instant to save himself. As Hillen struggles to rise, panic sets in. Despite using the artifact, he cannot comprehend how he was overpowered. He tries to flee. A massive demonic presence manifests behind him, eyes glowing red in the darkness. The Demon King Berger blocks his escape and questions where he thinks he is going. Hillen attempts to dodge, but Berger's power floods the field. A vast demonic form looms overhead, compressing violet energy into a single point. The attack descends. Hillen realizes he cannot evade it. Berger strikes, overwhelming the area in destructive force. As the dust settles, Berger looks down calmly and tells him to take the hit first, addressing Hillen Cargill by name. A violent surge of purple power slams into the ground, tearing through the area and sending debris outward. When the dust settles, Berger stands upright at the center of the destruction, breathing out slowly as the remaining energy disperses around him. Berger looks down at the scene and comments that it is impressive. He notes that Hillen is still alive and orders that the survivor be bound and thrown into prison. Gordon acknowledges the order and adds that the collapsed human should be locked up as well. Granada lies weakly on the ground and slowly opens his eyes, realizing that he can see again. Berger approaches Granada and states that he did good work, then produces a glowing red object and calls it a reward. The power enters Granada's body, and he groans as his condition changes. Granada looks at himself in shock and realizes that he is fully recovered. Granada wonders what just happened, and whether Berger did it. From a short distance away, Berger states that he also used the precious spirit blossom on Granada, and Erhan responds with thanks. Berger acknowledges the dwarf's efforts and grants permission to dismantle the tower. The dwarf celebrates loudly and thanks the Demon King. Berger then tells everyone to restore and maintain the floors they were assigned to. He then turns away and walks across the grassy field without hesitation. From behind, it is noted that even after such a fierce battle, he looks completely unharmed, which is said to be fitting for a Demon King. Erhan hesitates and looks troubled. When asked what is wrong, she says it is nothing and pauses before stating that she thinks the Demon King is tired. Meanwhile, Berger suddenly loses strength, drops to one knee, and then collapses onto the ground. He breathes heavily and admits that it was very close, adding that a Demon King cannot afford to show weakness. Still lying there, Berger curses Hillen Cargill and realizes that Hillen must be one of the 10 stars. 10 stars are the 10 strongest heroes on the continent, and although Hillen Cargill is one of them, he is considered one of the weakest among the 10 stars. Berger lay sprawled on the red-stained floor, breath ragged, vision tilting as the last exchange replayed in his mind. He admitted the truth without comfort. He had barely accumulated any demonic energy in this life. To grow stronger, he had gambled everything on a narrow plan. If Hillen Cargill had been in perfect condition, Berger would never have won. The plan had worked because it drained Hillen first, provoked him, then shoved him into panic. The chaos narrowed Hillen's focus until he exposed an opening. Berger seized it and struck with everything he had. For now, it counted as a flawless victory by Berger's standards, a result that had never happened before. He had altered fate. He could do it. He could change the future. And if fate could be bent once, it could be shattered again. This time directed at the heroes who stood in his way. At the Holton Walk press conference hall, reporters state that investors are demanding accountability and demand to know who is responsible for the failure. Lord Wharton responds that they have not failed yet and insists that there is still hope. He states that Sir Hillen Cargill and the great heroes have not given up and are still searching for the Demon King's tower, asking for a little more time. Well, the thing is that news about the new Demon King spreads rapidly across the entire continent. The king curses Hillen Cargill for talking big and demands to know what will happen now, declaring that if Hillen fails to rescue the princess, he will be executed. A dwarf begins to speak about the hero's journey, but the princess interrupts and orders him to stop and find Lager immediately. The story was distorted and exaggerated. People say that Sir Hillen Cargill never came back, and some say that he is already dead. The world fell into deep sorrow. Because of that, Berger's demonic energy points piled up quickly at the Heroes Guild headquarters, where Lord Wharton stands. Someone asks if there is not even a hair's breadth of falsehood in what was said. Wharton answers that it is true and swears on his name. He swears on his name that he spoke only the truth. The response follows that if that is true, then it is a serious matter. But since the identity of the new Demon King is still unknown, caution is necessary. He says that Hillen Cargill is one of the 10 stars and cannot be brought down easily. A decision is made to wait 10 more days for news of him. If there is still nothing after 10 days, all heroes on the continent, a total of 4,728, will launch a full-scale assault and eliminate the new Demon King at Berger's Tower underground prison. Berger approaches the cell and asks if Hillen is awake, remarking that even his recovery speed is exceptional. Hillen regains consciousness and addresses the Demon King, stating that if Berger kept him alive, then Berger must want something and should get straight to the point. Berger responds that it is good to see Hillen willing to talk and tells him to become his vassal. Hillen reacts in shock and confusion, questioning what he just heard and asking if he heard it wrong. Berger spoke calmly, remarking that the hero's journey had consumed an enormous amount of money. Food for hundreds, security, lodging, membership fees, armor, weapons, and even top-grade consumables. Berger explained that such costs were usually covered by investments from merchant groups and nobles. If the Demon King was defeated, the heroes' lives would be turned around. But if they failed, they would be crushed under debt. That was the unavoidable fate of heroes who accepted investments. This time, every investment had been focused on a single individual. Berger made it clear that the person was Hillen Cargill, the captain of the hero party. In other words, Hillen himself. Hillen understood immediately. Even if he escaped from this place, he would be branded a failed hero, forced to live in hiding for the rest of his life while being chased by debt. He demanded to know how Berger was so certain. Granada stepped forward and stated that he had told him. Hillen exploded in rage, accusing him of betrayal. Granada shouts that Hillen had nerve to say that after what he had done, insisting he had been on their side from the very beginning. Berger then explained the true reason for their failure. There had never been a Demon King like him until now. Just as Berger had broken the old standards of Demon Kings, the heroes should have adapted and found a new way to clear the towers. They had failed to do so. Berger raised his hand, purple demonic energy gathering and condensing into a glowing orb. If one of the strongest heroes secretly interfered with those plans, Berger questioned whether humans could truly succeed at all. The artifact was revealed as Garmin's orb. Hillen stared at it, shaken, and asked what it was. Berger explains that the orb is a magic tool used to monitor his subordinates. Once it enters the body, it clings to the brain instantly. Berger states that he will immediately know if hostility is directed toward him, and that he can destroy the brain with a single gesture, adding that the tool was expensive. Berger continues that if the orb fails to adapt to the body, he will consider it a rejection and kill Hillen. He adds that there are plenty of usable heroes anyway. Hillen panics and shouts that a hero as strong as him is immune to mind control magic, insisting that the moment the orb enters his body, it will disappear, and that it is not his fault. Granada states that a hero can dispel their mental defenses by their own will, and tells Berger that Hillen said it himself. Hillen screams in agony. He curses Granada, calling him a deranged elf and accusing him of having no shame. Granada snaps back that Hillen is the one who should be ashamed. Hillen shouts that Berger is only going to waste a precious magical tool and declares that he will never submit to a Demon King. Berger tells Hillen to shut up and swallow. Hillen groans as the orb enters him, his eye wide with pain. Later, Granada comments that Hillen is really tenacious and asks what Berger will do if Hillen would rather die. Berger tells him not to worry. He states that a greedy human who treats his comrades as disposable because of money is exactly what he despises. Hillen hangs restrained with his arms spread, dark energy rising around him as his name is displayed. Berger states that Hillen will never sacrifice himself. Hillen clenches his teeth and mutters in frustration as the system displays his status as the Demon King's vassal. Later, Berger is informed that although Hillen has been made his vassal, his actions will be heavily restricted due to an enormous debt of 100,000 gold. The gold Hillen previously exchanged for demonic energy amounted to barely 2,000. Berger considers the sum comparable to a small nation's annual budget and is asked how more will be gathered. Berger decides it is time to receive a message. An invitation arrives for the annual gathering of Demon Kings. the unison of towers. He reflects that in his previous life he avoided such gatherings, finding demon kings banding together distasteful. Now, having dealt directly with heroes, he admits that following the demon king's standards might have stopped them. With no choice left, he accepts the invitation. Burgess sets off, declaring they will swindle the senior demon kings. That's it for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Let me know your thoughts of this manhwa through comment section.